Well, you had been enthusiastically optimistic in terms of health uh, because you were not the sort of candidate that one would expect to have breast cancer.
Right. I never thought of it. I mean, I don't know if I would have called myself an optimist or a pessimist if you interviewed me before, but I certainly was unduly optimistic about health and, about, this couldn't happen to me. I was strong, I'm fit, etc.
And this happened at a time when you were experiencing great success. Wasn't this when Nickel and Dimed was hitting the bestseller list?
Well, actually, the book just came out as I finished chemotherapy. So I went on a book tour wearing a wig. It was pretty grim.
I remember you here. I don't remember the wig, but
Did my hair look good?
I'll have to look at the old photographs. But when this kind of thing happens, people say we're going to lick this thing. And what's wrong with that?
Well, I don't know what you can do. When you have cancer and they tell you different things to go through, there are treatments that I find fairly barbaric. Chemotherapy is like a sledgehammer. You kill all the dividing cells in the body, hoping to get the cancer cells too in the process. And you're not battling. I mean, I have that whole language of, gee, battled cancer, etc. I don't know. You just try to go along with it and survive the treatments, basically.
Well, I was surprised by some of the statistics about breast cancer you cite in your book. Is it true that the death rate from breast cancer improved very little between the 1930s and 2000?
Right.
So is chemotherapy not working?
I would like to see more analysis of this. I would never have undertaken it myself if I had been more clear-headed at the moment of the decision and able to say, hey, you're just talking about a couple of percentage points increase in survival rate. No, I'd rather not go through that, period.
In fact, you compare chemo and radiation to leeches.
Well, I say, we can never be content with the kind of medical treatments that are being offered. I remember, I was a women's health activist in the 70s and the 80s, and in the 70s, the doctors used to do these radical mastectomies and leave a woman essentially crippled on one side. One arm would never really move right, until women protested, and we said, no, there's got to be something more limited, and then of course, they started doing a more limited one.
So is a radical mastectomy a better approach?
No. I'm saying we have a history, I think, of women who have been activists around health issues of really looking critically at what's going on, saying, is this really the best approach?
I'm just wondering, what is the most effective then?
I don't know. I don't know.
How were you introduced into the role your attitude would play in your recovery from this disease? This whole thing with the pink mascot.
Well, yeah, I just felt so angry and I guess frightened too. And I remember writing on the message board of the Komen Foundation, which is the biggest of the breast cancer foundations, and it's out there. Everybody's racing for the cure with them, and right now.
And October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Yeah. So I wrote a post on the message board, and the subject line was angry. And it wasn't a crazy rant. I just listed some things I was upset about, from the insurance company that I was always fighting with, to the barbaric treatments. And why doesn't anybody know the cause of this disease? Why do we have an epidemic of this? And finally, I said, rather daringly, and I just don't like all the pink ribbons. What's with the pink, And I got back, one response was like, Barb, run, don't walk to the nearest therapist. And it offended me, but the reasoning behind that was, you will not get better from cancer, not only breast cancer, but this is widely believed about other kinds too, unless you have a positive attitude.
Norman Cousins wrote a book about that.
He laughed his way through cancer. I could just as well say I snarled my way through cancer and write a book about that.
Wasn't having breast cancer considered a somewhat shameful experience before Betty Rollins and Betty Ford went public?
It was very stigmatized. I mean, it wasn't like mentioned in obituaries. They just say died after a long disease, something like that. And so it's a good thing that we have all this awareness, and it's not a shameful thing, etc. We can talk about it freely, which wouldn't have happened 30 years ago.
And now, of course, there are websites in which people talk about it freely. What did you discover on those websites?
It was all about being upbeat, being positive, and even worse, going over the line for me, the idea that you should accept your cancer as a blessing.
Some people say
as
that it's a gift.
A gift. It was a gift to you because you were going to end up being a more spiritual, sensitive, evolved sort of person.
But be honest, didn't it give you the gift of an idea for a book proposal?
All right, yeah. Make me angry about something, and I've got an idea for a book, yeah.